What up, YouTube? It's Kurt here. Today we're going to talk about every deck and the problem every player faces. It's called bricking. All right, so if you don't know it, every deck in the meta can brick, and I think it's a thing that a lot of people think about, and well, a lot of people worry about, and probably worry a little bit too much about. Now, if you actually break down the math and what your odds are of just completely, utterly bricking, some decks you can actually calculate it. Some decks are harder than others because you don't really get to your pieces. Well, if you don't get to your pieces, sometimes you have a combination of plays that you can do, and depending on certain cards, and it becomes a little bit muddier. So a true brick is hard to evaluate in some cases. But we're going to take a look at a couple examples. Obviously, we have Salamangreat is known as a tier 1, very consistent deck right now. So what does a brick look like at Salamangreat? Well, you can draw 5 hand traps. that's pretty bricky in Salamangreat. You could draw one. You could draw one spinny, and that's really hard to do anything with. So Salamangreats are not immune to the brick at all whatsoever. Most builds run at least probably. Well, I've seen budget builds run like 6 hand traps. More often than not, you're running 9 to 12, and even then, it's like if you draw the field spell, the field spell, it's almost like you don't even want when you draw the field spell, it's so bad. When you draw the field spell and you draw the traps with no support backing the traps, yeah, you're gonna have a rough time of things. Sometimes Fusion of Fire itself can be kind of a brick. That's just the nature of Salamangreat, and Salamangrate's also kind of weak to getting hand trapped itself. Those are just things to keep in mind. Let's look at Sky Strikers. All right, so Sky Strikers, yeah, there actually are kind of a small amount of resources for Sky Striker to get its initial engine going. Just once the engine's going, it's really, really ridiculous. If you draw the field spell, you can get into your core pieces. So the core pieces will pretty much consider Sky Striker Ray, and we'll consider Upstart Engage. And those are a total of 6 cards. And if you don't hard draw one of those, or or whatever retrieves your warrior, that one, the limited card, that's a total of 7. Or if that could get ashed, and you'd be kind of shit in the bed there. If you don't start with those, or if your engages get hand trapped, yeah, that's pretty much a brick for Sky Strikers. I mean, you can have the field spell if you have a combination of the field spell and multi-roll, or the field spell gets you your one of those off your excavation. Your odds are a little bit better, but there's probably a 5 to 10% chance Sky Strikers just can't make an initial play, and that is tough. Farfus said it best: "This hand loses to a roll of toilet paper." And again, there's always going to be trade-offs for more consistent decks. Generally speaking, the more consistent decks have either some fragility to their builds, or they're just not as powerful. You're doing a trade-off there. Right now, the most consistent deck might be a lot of different variations of Orcust. There are so many variations of Orcust running around right now, and it's just, well, the thing is, it's so easy to splash. I actually think, I like Orcust. I like it as a deck. It's really good. It's really fun. But the thing is, I think it's almost too splashable. It's easy to put up any kind of deck. You're like, oh, I'm playing this deck, and you hand trap certain things, and it's like, oh, surprise, Orcust. And that's the main problem with the deck, is that it's not a rogue strategy, of course, but like the engine within it can be kind of rogue, and it's too. I like decks that are versatile. That's almost too much versatility, because yeah, I hope a lot of people know what I'm trying to say. If you make certain cards too splashable and everybody starts playing them in the deck, generally speaking, that tends to be considered unhealthy. Chicken Game, Pot of Greed, obviously those are really busted cards, but in case of an Orcust engine that's playable in way too many strategies, I think there's an argument to be made there. But Orcust, if you're looking at a brick, well, sometimes you can draw a couple, a couple high-level Orcus monsters, if you draw a couple high-level Orcus monsters and the Fog Blades, yeah, most people are running 2 Fog Blades. They don't really want to run 1. You want to get that multi-negate board up. Yeah, they're having a tough time of things too, and so that's the problem with. Well, Orcus I think is generally seen as the more consistent version because you're only playing. I think you're playing even less bricks in your deck than a lot of those other other decks are playing, and you can play bigger builds of that deck specifically to bury those bricks a little bit better. And yeah, that's really what I like about it. And a lot of times, I think I really like the danger build, but obviously any deck that you can splash in there will make it good. All right, so let's look at Thunder Dragons, and we'll do Thunder Dragons, and then that'll be my last example. Thunder Dragons, if you're looking, yeah, Thunder Dragons. If you open up Levianair, if you open up your Diablos, if you open up, yeah, that and 3 Thunder Dragon. I've had people open up 3 Thunder Dragon. Though any combination of those on your first turn, it might not look so great for you. And a lot of Thunder Dragon just has so many cards that it wants to draw into. It doesn't really want to open up on its opening. Yeah, Thunder Dragon full combo, obviously really, really degenerate. If they open really well, they can fight through multiple hand traps. It's completely stupid. But at the same time, if you get a slightly bricky hand, they get their Saryuja permanence. It can be a little bit fragile. So hopefully this video helps out. Again, this is to emphasize that just don't stress too much about bricking, because no matter what build you have, you're probably going to run into bricks from time to time. So yeah, you minimize it to the best of your ability, but don't immediately try to completely change your build because you noticed you bricked like a couple times in a tournament. A tournament is a lot of freaking games. You're going to, if you don't brick in a tournament, you are really, really lucky that you didn't brick, no matter what you're running. And hopefully people just realize that. Even True Dracos might be the most consistent non-brick out there just because it plays so many draw engines, and Dragonic Diagram is ridiculous and not a hard once per turn. That in itself is ridiculous, but if they draw 3 monsters and a couple traps, they're having a rough time of things, and that definitely can happen in that deck, even though they play a very low monster count. But yeah, then we have decks like my Trainee Boys. The way I have like my build set up, with the Mystic Mine backup plan, like I've had a lot of consistency, at least with either getting the primary strategy or getting the backup plan of kind of sitting on Mystic Mine for a couple turns. Again, that's annoying and everything, but it turns out really well. But again, if I open my big 3000 Night Express Knight and and my Pegasus, most of the times that's going to be a brick, and you just kind of have to live with that, especially if playing a rogue strategy where you have to compress as much as you can. And somehow I made room for 5 hand traps, so those work out really well for me. But that I think I'll end it there, guys. Hopefully you get the point. And again, don't worry too much about bricking. You do want to minimize it, but if for some reason you want to do long testing, don't just, if you brick a couple times playing one particular build, don't take that to mean it's bad. That's not rational thinking. Again, it's a very luck-based game, and sometimes you can brick with a very, very consistent build early on in your testing. So that's all I got, guys. Hopefully you enjoy this video. Peace.